With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at lululemon.com.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be.
With Tamlin's surprise entrance comes Feyre's past trauma. Tensions are at a boiling point among the High Lords as their mutual distrust of the wayward High Lord of the Spring Court clouds any desire to form an alliance. Insults are handed out left and right as the group tries to sort through the truth and past misdeeds. Attack after attack, both verbal and physical, Feyre makes one last stand in hopes of finding an alliance.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author. This podcast is a discussion shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of the book, series spoilers may be discussed with or without warning. Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, death, and depression, will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's most ambitious novel in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. This week, we're discussing chapters 44 through 46 in A Court of Wings and Ruin. This week, we're asking ourselves, how does SJM take on the topic of misogyny, and what are the female reactions to it?
Themes we'll see in this section are trauma and past reflections. It is chapter 44, and Tamlin has just entered the chat. That's not what I wrote.
It's not.
As all the High Lords, High Lady, and retinues are aghast, shit starts to go down. Feyre observes the room. Everyone is putting their shields into place. Quote, I felt the tremor of magic slide through the room as shield after shield locked into place around each High Lord and his retinue. I love this because we don't know what the exact motive of the shields are. It could be that no one trusts Tamlin and they think that he's going to start attacking them. Or on the other hand, they could think that maybe Rhys and Tamlin could start fighting each other at any moment and they don't want to get in the crosshairs. Two things though. One, we already know the shields don't mean shit in this room. So, whatever about those. But second, I wonder how Tamlin took it when he felt all those shields go into place. And I'm not saying in the I feel bad for Tamlin way, because you're about to hear me go the fuck off on him. But what if him feeling all those shields go up only bolsters him to play the big bad wolf even more so?
Absolutely. He's matching their energy.
Mm-hmm.
They put up shields. So, okay, if they think I'm threatening, I'll be threatening.
Yeah.
I would too.
I would too. Yeah. Fuck you, Tamlin.
There's going to be a lot of that.
It's going to be a lot of that. If you have children around, I'm sorry.
Rhys, just like everybody else, is reinforcing his shield on the inner circle. But Feyre doesn't necessarily focus on that. She focuses on the essence of the energy in his magic. Quote, rage laced its essence, Rhys's magic. Wrath and rage, even if my mate's face was bored, lazy. If you go back to Season 1, Episode 1, we read a quote where we talk about Tamlin and his wrath and rage.
Wrath and rage.
They are the same.
When I saw that, I was like, Sarah, you know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, she absolutely.
You know what you're doing. Like, this entire beginning, I love it because she just is like, let's go back to chapter 1.
Yeah, of this entire series.
Yep. Feyre tries to regain composure and strength, and she doesn't channel the men to do so. Instead, she tries to look at Mor and Nesta. Quote, I try to school mine, her features, into cool caution with which Nesta regarded him, or the vague disinterest on Mor's. I tried and failed utterly. In this time, when Feyre's once abuser is coming back into the picture, Feyre isn't thinking of the men in the room or how to be like Rhys. Instead, she's trying to find strength in women, and that's the type of women supporting women that we're actually going to see quite a bit in here, and I love it.
Agreed. For once, Feyre is actually focused on someone other than Rhys.
There's something about it, about like, I don't know, abuse from men to seek comfort from women.
Yeah.
And strength from women.
Yep, I agree. So why is it that Feyre is having a hard time keeping a neutral expression? Remember, she viewed Tamlin as grinning like a wolf at the end of the previous chapter. What does that mean? She's intimidated by Tamlin. We see that in her description of him in general in this chapter. Quote, here was the High Lord who had shredded those Naga into bloody ribbons. Here was the High Lord who had impaled Amarantha on Lucian's sword and ripped out her throat with his teeth. Feyre seems to forget that she killed Naga too the day that Tamlin killed Naga. She also forgets how Tamlin begged at Amarantha's feet as Amarantha killed Feyre. Tamlin only killed Amarantha after the curse was lifted and his powers returned. Feyre is making Tamlin seem bigger and stronger than he was in the past and how she regarded him at the start of the novel.
This is what happens though, right? Like when you see an ex or an abuser or something from someone from your past. Tamlin is the abuser, and he arrived on his terms. Feyre isn't in control of the narrative like when she was in the Spring Court. Now we have, I'm going to call it the true dynamic, but I don't like calling it the true dynamic, but it's without all of the other political stuff going on, right? She's not the spy anymore. What Feyre reflects on, the killing of the Naga, killing of Amarantha, those are things that she respected from Tamlin. And as we talked about in Season 1, Tamlin killing the Naga is what made Feyre start to fall in love with him. The things that are listed are almost as if he's the monster. But, like we said, we established that Feyre's liked those things. She killed the Naga too. Rhys ripped apart the ravens with his bare hands just earlier in this book, and I don't think that this moment is meant to be ooh, Tamlin, he's the wild card, but rather, Feyre is seeing the things that she liked in him and how he really did turn out to be a monster. It's almost like she's questioning, were her instincts so far off? How could she have missed who he truly was? I'm wondering if it's that type of mentality. And remember, folks, abusers don't go into relationships abusive. Just like we see in the series, in the start of the book in Thorns and Roses, it starts off kind of gentle. And even with love, the red flags are just kind of like pretty pink decorations because you're in love. And Feyre is not at fault for this. She never was.
We also see here, and we will see again in this chapter, how Feyre ties Tamlin to Hybern in her mind in the description of his teeth. Quote, Tamlin's teeth were as white as crow-picked bones as he smiled broadly. What else is bone-colored? Everything to do with Hybern's clothing, the castle on the cliff, and the list goes on.
I want to know what teeth whitener he uses.
Yeah.
Like, if they're that white.
Oh, yeah. I want those teeth.
Like, does he just not drink coffee?
No.
Oh.
He probably bleaches it with blood. The blood of his enemies.
I'm just imagining him being like in like little blood crust white strips.
Another note Feyre makes about Tamlin's appearance is that he has no bandolier to replace the one she stole in part 1 of Wings and Ruin. Why is that? On one hand, you could look at it as being because she took his power when she took his bandolier. Remember, the Spring Court has fallen, and Tamlin is without power. He's without support. Therefore, the lack of the bandolier represents his lack of power.
Just like everything in this moment, it's all a throwback to Book 1 and how Feyre viewed Tamlin. Remember, Tamlin used to have bandoliers, but without his knives and without a sword. He was a beast with no claws. The last time, it was Amarantha who declawed him. This time, it's Feyre. What I find to be fascinating is the fact that Tamlin chose to show up without any weapons. It's not like Feyre took his bandoliers and therefore like he can't find another set of swords or knives or anything. No, he could have easily brought the sword. So why didn't he? I think that there's two parts to this. The first being that Tamlin's going into this knowing that the other High Lords there probably don't trust him, and therefore he needs to appear like he's not a threat and not have any weapons. The second part is what it will do to Feyre. I think Tamlin wants to look like Feyre stripped him dry. He has no issue saying that he has nothing left, that everyone left him, and it's all her fault. Sure, let's ignore the fact that for any leader, there would have been at least a handful of people still loyal to you. And if you don't, that's not Feyre's fault. That's you. You're the problem. Ultimately, though, I think he's dressed like this to hurt Feyre, to look like the man he once was, and to be threatening while doing so. That if Tamlin looks like the man Feyre fell in love with, then he can hurt her even more.
I never considered this until we were prepping, and I think you make such a great point. It's so manipulative of Tamlin to come in with no weapons because he's trying to show that he's defenseless, that he's here with good intentions, that he's not here to harm anybody. But what keeps happening during the discussions? His claws keep slipping out. Mm-hmm. He's got knives. They're in his hands.
Yeah.
And that's his true self. So it's fascinating that he's trying to put on certain airs, but he can't hide what he really is.
You know, if you think about it in book 1, why didn't he have a bandolier of knives? Like, what happened? It's not like Amarantha took every knife away.
It wasn't called a bandolier in book 1. I forget what word she used.
Yeah, she said bandolier.
Do you have my book 1?
Yeah. Do you know what chapter it is?
Chapter 6 or 7.
Let me go grab it.
Because I remember the change happened in book 2, and I was like, wait, it used to be called something else. So in Thorns and Roses, Tamlin wore a leather baldric with no knives. It changes to bandolier in Mist and Fury.
Motherfucker.
But
what's a baldric?
It's basically the same idea. Why do I bring this up? To Jac's point, just like in Thorns and Roses, Tamlin has no weapons. In book 1, he wore the leather baldric, but there was never any knives in it.
Which is a choice.
And here's Feyre's quote when she first thinks about this. Mm-hmm. This is in chapter 7 of Thorns and Roses. Tamlin paused, so close that one swipe of those claws lurking under his skin could rip my throat out. That was why the leather baldric bore no weapons. Why use them when you were a weapon yourself?
But it doesn't even make sense. Why are you... It's like, remember when belts were just for fashion and never actually had a purpose?
Yeah.
And they just like draped over you?
Yeah.
Like, that's what Tamlin had. He had one of those Western style, large chunky belt. But like he's doing the same thing where it's like he's showing up without weapons, and it's both to intimidate and to not intimidate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Manipulative little fuck. Hope my mom never listens to this episode. Curse so much. I just want to give a shout out to some fantastic writing. Quote, "No one, not even Amarantha, had looked at me with such hatred. No, Amarantha hadn't really known me. Her loathing had been superficial, driven from a personal history that poisoned everything. Tamlin knew me, and he hated every inch of what I was." Oh my God, chef's kiss. That's just such a good moment.
It's a great moment because even if you think about like Tarquin maybe quote unquote hates Feyre for what she did at the summer court, but he still doesn't know her the way that Tamlin knows her. Yeah. And it is so self-aware. And it must be like the first time someone's truly hated her, and that must be really daunting.
I mean, and you're also realizing that someone who truly, I mean, we get into a discussion later if Tamlin truly loved her, but they were in a relationship. He really cared about her. Right. He loved her in the way that he was capable of loving her. And to go from someone who held you in such high esteem to, I hate you now. Like, they know you. They know everything, the inner workings of you. And that's what they hate. Like, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. No wonder why Feyre's kind of dumbstruck this entire chapter.
And overwhelming.
Very overwhelming.
Like, even if Tamlin's opinion is worthless, it's still someone who knew you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if someone sat in front of me and I knew the depth of their hatred for me, I would be in my head the whole time.
Yeah, 100%. I have full comfort knowing that all my exes really like me.
That's great.
Yeah. Smug about that.
When Tamlin observes Feyre and Rhys and the mating band on Feyre's finger, Feyre thinks, quote, "No more masks, no more lies and deception." I want to bring something up here that I didn't bring up last episode, but I think is going to be relevant to our discussion now and in the future. Note that along with the idea of no more masks, all the High Lords and High Lady are on chairs around a reflection pool. What else is a reflective object in this novel? The Ouroboros. As we know, the Ouroboros shows the viewer their true inner self, or the monster within. What we see in this chapter is that while gathered around the reflection pool, the masks are off. Everyone is their true outer self, the true character that is observable by those around them, their associations, their biases, their good and bad faces. But wait, did you realize there's a third, more obscure reflective surface in this novel? Let me take you back to chapter 1. Feyre painted Rose's, quote, "a bright, pretty lie. I'd crafted my demeanor as intricately as one of the paintings." The paintings Feyre created in the Spring Court in early Wings and Ruin are symbolic of the mask, or the disguised outer self. For Feyre specifically, it was what she convinced Tamlin she was, and what Feyre convinced herself she was as well.
I like that. And you know what we're not getting in this scene, which we normally get a lot, is Feyre painting the scene in her head.
You're right. She has been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, she did it a lot in Mist and Fury when she started getting better. She does it here. Just those moments of like, and if I could paint the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it kind of goes into painting was a reflection,
Yeah.
right, of what's going on. And right now it must be too painful to reflect on what's happening.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, we're seeing, I also struggle to use true dynamic, but the true dynamic between Tamlin and Feyre, like abuser, abusee.
Yeah.
And just like the difference between the reflection pool and the painting, their dynamic is flipped and Feyre's nature has flipped in this scenario. She no longer feels powerful. She feels at risk.
I mean, think about how jarring that must be for her, where the last time she saw him, she was so in control of everything that was happening. Like,
Yeah.
She was kicking ass, taking names, and loved every second of it. And yeah, you know, now she kind of has, especially after the attack in the Summer Court, she has a better understanding of, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But again, like, Tamlin deserves shit.
Yeah.
It sucks that she hurt the Spring Court and the people there, but like, Tamlin deserves shit. And the reason why it's like, yeah, that, like, I hate calling it the true dynamic too, but it's just like, she's not putting on a role.
Yeah.
She is Feyre. She is a survivor of a domestic abuse. Yeah. Even though she saw Tamlin in the Spring Court, she wasn't. She was seeing a pawn.
Right.
Now she's seeing Tamlin for the first time, truly.
Yep, I agree. And with that comes not only the bad things he did, but also the things she remembers as potentially were kind of positive at the start of their relationship, which are also the same things she refused to acknowledge in part 1 of Wings and Ruin. For example, when Tamlin drags his claws down the arm of his chair, instead of thinking of him retracting his claws in front of Rhys several times while she was with Tamlin, Feyre thinks of how Tamlin once dragged his claws down her skin during sex. At the same time, she's able to see the flip side. Tamlin's claws later puncture the wood of the chair, and Feyre thinks that that's meant for her too, because sex and violence, baby.
Sex and violence. And I'm wondering if she's thinking like, I hate Tamlin, he's horrible, but I take claws over Talon toes any day. Rhys, stop dragging your toes along my skin.
Gross.
Throughout this whole scene, Tamlin can't figure out what narrative he believes and what narrative he's telling himself. First, he accuses Rhys of stealing his bride in the middle of the night. Then, Tamlin changes to Feyre being manipulative and plotting against him. Me, being who I am, would have loved to point out these contradictions because I do that quite a bit. Be like, well, which is your fight then? What's your argument? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then here's a little fun side story. In high school, I was bullied quite aggressively, and it was well known that in high school, I was a virgin. And one day, these girls were harassing me, and I was walking to my car, and they were yelling at me, calling me a whore and a slut. And I just remember turning around, looking at them like, I'm a virgin? Like, it was so well known. Like, you're not, it doesn't even make sense. Why are you saying that? Come up with something better. And I just like walked away. I was like, what? So it's the same thing. I love nitpicking an argument. It pisses people off more.
Honestly, yes. Yeah. Having been the receiver of that sometimes.
Amy, you said this when technically it's this.
Yeah. But you also said this? Yeah. Which one is it? Let me just be mad. What sets Tamlin off in this scene? When he accuses Rhysand of stealing Feyre from him in the night, Feyre tells Tamlin, quote, "The sun was shining when I left you."
Mm-hmm.
Such a good statement.
Oh my God. There, yes, don't speak to watch how you speak to my high lady, or get your hands off. There's so many other good lines, but we do not
give this one love enough.
God, we need more of it. Like, the sun was shining when I left you.
So why are we so in love with it? There are so many layers in this statement. So let's go through them. First off, in Thorns and Roses, the sun was associated with Tamlin, and Feyre took on sun-like traits as she became him. On the flip side, here in Wings and Ruin, the sun now means something completely different. It's symbolic of truth. It is present between mates constantly. So to say the sun was shining suggests one of two things, or both things: that Feyre walked away from Tamlin and in the process found her truth and her mate. Also, the sun was shining. Tamlin was as aware as the sun of the harm he was causing to Feyre.
Mm-hmm.
Let's also think about this literally. To take Feyre away in the night suggests that Tamlin was blindsided, and that maybe even Feyre herself had no agency or choice in the matter. However, the opposite is true. The sun was shining. Feyre could see what was happening, what choices she was making, and ultimately, she left him, not taken away. That one simple sentence is so powerful, and it's chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. See, you also love the little details too.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I think it's an English student thing.
Yeah,
a literature like writer.
Yeah.
Where it's like words mean things.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I have nothing to say but to agree.
After Feyre tells Tamlin that iconic line, he dismisses her, not even bothering to answer her because he's a little bitch boy. Tamlin goes on to explain why he's there, how he's always intended to defeat Hybern, to find a way around the bargain, for Rhys to turn Feyre and, quote, "delighted in ripping open my territory for Hybern to invade, all for a petty grudge, either her own or her master's." What makes me sick is how many half-truths there are here. And that's just token for an abuser. Yes, Tamlin was looking for a way out. Yes, Feyre delighted in hurting him. But no, she didn't do it so that Hybern can invade. Question: how much of this do you think Tamlin genuinely believes, and how much is he lying to himself?
So for me, this is a matter of deduction. Tamlin knows he's the one who went to Hybern. Tamlin knows that Feyre killed Hybern's niece and nephew. So he's either lying to himself or he's lying to everyone else.
Yeah.
And if he knows the things that he knows, it's not possible for him to lie to himself without also having amnesia.
Yeah.
Therefore, he's lying to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, he just wants to dig Rhys and Feyre's grave because he felt like that's what they did to him.
Yeah, he just really wants to... He wants to believe it.
He wants to believe it. He wants to give Feyre a taste of her own medicine.
He wants to be the victim.
Right, exactly.
And we're going to talk about it a lot more, but he is the king of half-truths.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we're going to keep coming back to that.
Oh, it's so annoying. When Feyre shuts Tamlin down by saying that he doesn't get to rewrite the narrative, Tamlin ignores her and turns to Rhys and says, quote, "When you fuck her, have you ever noticed that little noise she makes right before she climaxes?" Shots fired. No. We are going to see this a lot in this episode, and I will point it out every single freaking time, and I will be mad every single freaking time. When weak men attack women verbally, they resort to sex. They resort to sex, and the core of the insult is women enjoying sex or choosing sex, and that then becomes a weapon to use against them. So in order to respond to Feyre, Tamlin decides to shame her in front of everyone for her own pleasure in sex. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and it's the most realistic thing that SJM has written.
And honestly, it's all the more evidence that Tamlin is lying.
Mm-hmm.
For Feyre to call him out for his bullshit and for him to just be like, oh, well, let me shame you with sex.
Yeah.
You're right. Realistic, but also proof you're a douche.
Proof you're a douche. And I just hate that, like, I would be embarrassed too, obviously. Like,
Obviously.
I mean, it's an embarrassing moment. But, like, why should it? Why should it be embarrassing that she had sex with her fiance and beforehand boyfriend? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh no, it's so embarrassing that I've had sex with like 2 people.
Right.
And I enjoyed it. Whoa, so
Yeah.
scary for me.
I would have tried to, this would be me trying to be clever, would have been like, you know what, Tamlin, I'm glad you were able to experience that once. Rhysand makes sure I experience that every time.
Yeah, just something. Like, just be like,
If you're going to shame me with my sex, let me shame you with yours.
or be like, oh, no, he doesn't know it because it's not a little noise with him.
Yeah, that's the fake one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We get a record scratch moment. Feyre is mortified. She's looking around the room to see reactions. Rhys takes Feyre in for a moment as if to assess what level of tact he needs to take on here. And then out of nowhere, we get, quote, but it was Azriel who said, his voice like cold death, "Be careful how you speak about my high lady." Oh, I think I did a good job.
I think you did great.
Thank you. I hurt myself when I did it during prep. Let's all breathe in and breathe out real quick. Let's all appreciate that moment there. All right. Now, before we go into Azriel's line, though, let's look into what was said about Rhys real fast.
Yeah, so one of our listeners brought this up in a DM to us. Why does Rhys look Feyre up and down instead of coming to her defense? And it is a really ambiguous thing that he does. Feyre doesn't attach emotion or project intent onto it. So why, in response to what Tamlin is doing, Rhys just looks at Feyre?
Oh, I think I have an answer.
Okay.
It's like this was my mom's tactic. Like when a little kid falls down, you look at them and you don't immediately go, oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. You're okay. Are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them to cry.
Yeah.
You just kind of look at them and be like, are you good? Are we in pain here? Are we good? Okay.
That's a great point. Rhys has already demonstrated since arriving here that he looks at her and lets her react.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to do that again when Azriel attacks and all these things. He's waiting for Feyre because she's High Lady. It's her turn to defend herself.
Yeah. I mean, Feyre's grown. She gets to decide whether she's insulted or not. And
Right.
if she is insulted, she gets to decide what level and what degree that is. Like,
Right.
you know, I'm all for having your partner defend you. But at the same time, you have to be able to defend yourself. And if you're able to say, you know what, that's not going to faze me, then your partner needs to respect that.
Yeah.
And say, all right, well, then that's not, if you're okay, then I'm okay.
Right. Right.
And it wasn't an insult. Like, that's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, she enjoyed sex. That's not an insult.
Right.
There's a difference, like, later on when Baron calls Feyre human filth
Mm-hmm.
and Rhys can't hold back. That's an insult.
Right.
Now back to the Azriel analysis. A few questions. Why was it Azriel that spoke out in Feyre's defense? Why him and not Cassian? Why was it so hard for Daddy Azzy to hear these things said about Feyre? Well, storytelling-wise, it makes sense. Azriel's going to attack Eris soon, and we know it's going to be for more in defense of her, but now we have evidence that he's stressed. He's ready to just lash out. If we didn't get this from him, then that moment with Eris might not have made sense. Now, as to why Azriel felt the need to speak up, especially when Cassian also is really close to Feyre, who also had a mother who was abused, maybe Azriel did it and said those things, knowing that Tamlin would then find out that, yes, Feyre is High Lady.
You bring up great points. It is very calculating on Azriel's part to call her High Lady, because that's when Tamlin realizes and it throws him off. So that's a good manipulative move. I also feel like, to some extent, Azriel is the defender of women.
Yeah.
Think about what we know of Silver Flames. He goes and saves Gwyn from her situation. He's going to defend more here. He defends Feyre. He's the one that's always going to the aid of women.
You know what's funny, though, is while Azriel's a defender of women, Cassian is the empowerer.
Yes.
Empowerer.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even though Azriel's there to defend them, Cassian is there to teach you how to defend yourself.
Right. Which is why Elaine appeals to him, Because
he gets to defend.
He gets to defend.
I want both.
Defend me and empower me.
Yes.
That's my thought. Those are my thoughts.
That's a good thought. I enjoy your thought. It was actually a really good freaking thought.
Thanks.
I really enjoyed that. Like, he is the defender of women, and that's not a bad thing, but it can be.
Yeah, it can be.
Like, people, men especially, should be there to defend women. If a man, again, to our 5% of men, or 3% really, it's like, if you see a woman being harassed, you say something.
Right.
If you see a woman who looks like she's, a little distressed, you do something. Like, defend women.
Right.
We need the help. When we need help, we need help.
Yeah. Like, righteous indignation on my part is great, but sometimes I want to be righteously indignated myself.
And that's the thing where it goes too far.
Yeah.
Like, and I think this is like a perfect example because we talk later when he goes in defense of more, it's too far.
Yeah.
Like, right now, this defender of Feyre, reasonable.
Yep.
He said it with words, like menacing, let Tamlin know that she's a high lady with more. I'm so impressed with you right now. Like, he is the defender of women, and it's totally like the example of what's good defending of women and what's too much and too far.
Yep.
I just want everyone else to be proud of you too.
I feel like you're about to like punch yourself. You're like, you were just so happy.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm uncomfortable how I'm sitting.
As Tamlin goes on his tirade, Feyre thinks, quote, "It was an effort not to snarl, not to grip the arms of my chair and roar at him." Which is a very Tamlin-like response. It's animalistic. But I don't blame Feyre here. She's allowed to be primal. In addition to being an ass and defending Ianthe of all people, Tamlin has also torn down Feyre's pride and dignity. And no one but Feyre can do that to herself.
Yeah.
Feyre can only tear Feyre down.
We get a lot of only Feyre can tear Feyre down. Only Nesta can tear Feyre down.
Yeah, but Tamlin
doesn't
allowed.
get that right.
To me, this just further proves that Tamlin knows what he's doing. He knew Ianthe's motives. He knew that Ianthe was a bad player. And yet he makes Ianthe out to be innocent in his arguments and that Feyre is at fault Feyre's at fault for smashing Ianthe's hand, but it's not like Ianthe was perfectly innocent.
No. It was one of those things, we all agreed, you and I did. I don't know if anyone else agreed, but it was like, that was a little too far. That was a lot.
Yeah.
But, I'm not mad about it.
Right.
She's a horrible, horrible person. It was, aggressive, but, you do you, Feyre.
But yeah, Tamlin, ignore the fact that she was assaulting your best friend.
Your best fucking friend. I swear to God, I have to yell away from the microphone because I'm so mad. It's a... I didn't even register that it was his best friend too. And then he was so mad. I'm so mad at him. And you know what? In my mind, I'm over here being like, I bet he had sex with her too after Feyre left.
Yeah, probably.
And she insulted Lucian. Okay, all right. Oh, take a sip of water.
In his effort to destroy Rhys's and Feyre's credibility, Tamlin reminds the Winter Court of Rhys's involvement with the 24 dead younglings. Rhys tries to plead with Khalees by saying he tried to stop Amarantha, for which Khalees mocks him. And this made me remember how the other week, Jac compared Rhys and Tamlin. At the time, we compared quotes where Rhys did while Tamlin tried. Yet here we see the same jeer turned on Rhys. Rhys merely tried.
I think this is also an example of knowledge is power. Everyone in this room has what they think is the truth, that Rhys helped Amarantha. And Tamlin tries to use that knowledge, or what they think is knowledge, for power. But when Rhys tells the truth, that's what ends up helping him in the end. And people eventually believe him.
Because truth is the most powerful thing of all. Rhys and Feyre are forced to remember very traumatic things that they regret as a result of choices they made. Rhys and the Winter Court younglings, Feyre and Claire Better. But despite the haunting memories that they both have, they push through and speak truthfully of things that are hard for them to say. And to Jac's point, it works for them. Though, of course, it took Rhys swearing on Feyre's life, which I don't love.
No, I'm not a fan of it. And somehow, if I was Feyre, I feel like it would hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I'm surprised she didn't react more to that.
Yeah, like she's like, yeah, baby, swear on my life. It's like,
no, protect my life.
Protect my life. I don't care if you're telling the truth. Like, you can be like, the sky is blue. I swear on her life. Fuck you. You can be pink sometimes. Feyre holds on to Rhys and says that she believes him. Which is really funny to me because, like, I know she was trying to make it like a poignant moment where she holds on to him as just like, I believe you. No shit, you believe him. That's your mate.
Right.
Like, and even if you didn't believe him, you're going to say it out loud that you do.
Yeah. Yeah, no one cares.
No one your opinion doesn't matter for that one. Sorry, Feyre. Baron is the one who tries to question Feyre's honor and if they should even trust her. Quote, says the woman, Baron countered, who gave an innocent girl's name in her stead for Amarantha to butcher as well. To me, this falls under the miscommunication trope because Feyre could so easily say, oh, you mean when I was human and no one, cough, cough, you, Tamlin, told me anything about Amarantha and there was no way I could possibly begin to understand the repercussions of what was going on because I had no idea what was happening?
It's bullshit.
That's a valid argument.
Very valid.
Instead, Feyre feels guilty, which I get. Like, you know, I'd feel guilty too, but she lets it count as a mark against her character. Like, you're trying to get Helion, Thesan, Tarquin, Kallias, right? Like, these are people that she doesn't know are going to be on her side or not. And this is like a moment truly of like, can we trust these people? Don't let that count against you. There's a valid reason and a valid argument.
Right. It's obviously Tamlin's fault. And again, like, Rhys, why don't you say something?
Yeah,
like you knew you were giving Amarantha a false name.
He could very have easily been like, look, guys, I was there. She was a human. I was in her mind. She had no idea what was happening. She didn't even know there was a curse.
She didn't know who Amarantha was or that Amarantha existed.
She hadn't even seen a fairy before. She was like so confused to the whole world. And it's like, oh no, I gave a different name. Boo-hoo.
I would too.
Yeah. Harry did with Neville.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was his friend.
Yeah.
Claire Better was just her sister's friend. Wait a minute.
We've talked about this before.
No, me giving you your name, obviously.
Yeah.
But, like, I'm just realizing maybe, like, we haven't begun to unearth, like, maybe Nesta's, like, pissed off because she never had a friend except for one person.
Oh, yeah, Nesta's present.
Yeah, Nesta's there. Holy shit. Because that was Nesta's friend. And Nesta, her big thing was that all of her friends stopped talking to her, but then she became friends with Claire Better.
Yeah.
That was probably the only escape she had.
And then Claire Better gets killed.
Yeah.
Oh, we have not processed that.
Whoa. I mean, and then she probably is angry at Feyre, but also can't really blame her either, because we've never heard her talk about it with Feyre.
Right. Is this the first time Nesta's finding out?
Yeah. I'm going to pretend like no.
I don't remember.
This could very easily be.
Yeah.
Wow. Poor Nesta, too. So yeah, it pisses me off. Back to my notes. I just want to recognize, though, that Feyre isn't the only one who's being harassed by Baron. Baron makes a comment about Rhys being persuasive because of his sexual abilities. I mean, he uses more crude language than that. And I'm not here to use bad words, clearly. But yeah, so Rhys's sexual abilities when he was forced to have sex with Amarantha, it's all bullshit. I just can't wait for the scene eventually in future books when we know Eris will kill Baron. Yeah.
And this is where Baron and Tamlin are on the same level for me, because they both are using sex as a way to discredit someone else in the room.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Feyre acknowledges to herself that Rhys must have known that he would suffer by choosing to be honest and to be himself at the High Lord meeting. Quote, he'd known what coming here, presented just as we were, would cost him, what he might have to reveal beyond the wings he loved so dearly. I want to acknowledge something about the wings that Rhys always keeps hidden, but has chosen to reveal today. His wings, though powerful, are also a weakness. Rhys admitted to Feyre in Mist and Fury that the mere threat of ripping off his wings would have had Rhys admitting everything he knew during the War 500 years ago when he was captured. I wonder if it was that moment when he decided to keep his wings hidden forever so that they would never be available to be a weakness among his enemies. So, Hard left, I want to talk about another great parallel between Rhys and Tamlin in this scene. Rhys was just interrogated about the Winter Court youngling incident, with the High Lords mocking him and outright not believing him no matter what he said, until it gets to the point where Rhys admits Amarantha kept him busy in her bedroom during the incident, and then Rhys swore on Feyre's life, which, again, bullshit. The High Lords then turn their ire on Tamlin when Tamlin says he's brought information about Hybern's movements and plans, even when he has papers and maps to prove it. Unlike Rhysand, who doesn't lash out, Tamlin takes his frustration out on Feyre, mocking her and her pride for thinking, quote, "You were enough to turn me from that," his vow to fight against tyranny. So I'm against all of the general assholery of everybody in this room, but here in this moment, Tamlin is speaking half-truths that admittedly contain a kernel of truth. Granted, Tamlin didn't share any information with Feyre previously, but we have to remember Feyre did make an assumption when Tamlin talks about what happened at the Spring Court. Feyre's trauma at Tamlin's hands and Feyre's need to get back at him for what he did to her friends in Hybern prevented Feyre from considering an alternative to Tamlin's motives to let Hybern into his lands. So, again, there's a kernel of truth in what Tamlin is saying about Feyre. I know Tamlin's no saint, and I don't blame Feyre for her need to lash out at Tamlin, but he's not wrong that he did do a lot for Feyre and her family in early Thorns and Roses.
And that's just so typical abusive behavior,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like, oh, well, I did all these good things for you. And again, it's like, okay, yes, you did, but you're also using it against me now?
Right. That doesn't negate the shit that you pulled on me.
Yeah, but now you're using the good things you did as a weapon, which then voids the good things you did. And that's like such abusive tactics there.
Yep.
Where it's just, I hate his half-truths.
Yeah.
It really pisses me off. All of these could, in theory, be good arguments if Tamlin wasn't abusive, if he didn't trap Feyre in a house, if he didn't have bursts of anger, if he didn't get Feyre's sisters kidnapped. Tamlin is asking Feyre to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he never earned one. Not even a little tiny bit of benefit.
Nope.
No doubt. And that's the thing with Tamlin and his arguments. Like I said, they're all half-truths. He's technically not wrong, but he's also extremely wrong. And we can tell that Tamlin knows that he's wrong because just like what he did earlier, and what is it that men do when they don't have good arguments? They resort to slut-shaming women. Quote, "Yet you witness all that he did under the mountain," he being Rhys, "and still you spread your legs for him. Fitting, I suppose. He whored for Amarantha for decades. Why shouldn't you be his whore in return?" All right. First off, there's a little tiny thing there called consent. Feyre didn't whore herself out, and neither did Rhys. Feyre fell in love with Rhys, and Rhys was the victim of continued sexual assault for 50 years. If Tamlin knew his argument held strong and that he was in the right, he would not need to resort to this. But weak men and their weak arguments will always resort to it.
Because that's all the patriarchy has done for thousands of years.
It's just, yeah, like, you consented to have sex with a man, you slut. Like, but it was okay when it was with me.
Right. But I'm not a slut when I consent to have sex with women.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he has to have sex with a woman every year.
Right. He's the
We don't believe in sluts, but like, you know, Tamlin is. Like,
I didn't say the word. I
no,
stopped myself.
Yeah, like, you know, like he's the one. It's just the thing with men, right? Like they get their...
They're entitled to it. We're not.
They're so entitled. And then it just always resorts back down to it. To me, one of my red flags is when a guy says that their ex was crazy. Good guys, even if the girl was quote unquote like crazy and if she was like a horrible bitch, good guys never call them that. They always say
she had issues.
There was issues. She was really mad. There was other things going on. Like there's always things like that. My ex, there was a girl that he dated right before me, and it sounds like she was a handful.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that she did, not something I would ever do.
I was going to say toxic.
Yeah, very toxic. And that's the thing, like, that's the right word. And he never spoke ill of her. It was just like, yeah, these weren't good things and stuff. So, yeah, if men slut shames, if a man calls an ex crazy or anything like that, you know, Tamlin's in bed with Ianthe like, yeah, my ex was crazy. She destroyed the Spring Court. You're crazy, Tamlin.
Luckily, Tamlin's arguments go up in smoke when Varian admits that he was the one who told the Night Court about the attack on Adrietta, and not because they were associated with Hybern. However, that, of course, does not stop Tamlin from lashing out again. But, I love Nesta for telling Tamlin, quote, "If you want someone to blame for all of this, perhaps you should look in the mirror first," which feels so appropriate when they're sitting around a reflection pool.
I know. I love it so much. And then the fact that Cassian reacts for the first time when it's in defense of Nesta, it melts my heart. Now we get into a line that makes me sick. And if there was a genie and I had a fourth magical wish, it would not be world peace. It would be that I could go into this book and slap Tamlin so hard and then tell him how no one loves him and that not even his mother loved him and that he's the second best for everything and everyone. Because I like to use my words to hurt people.
You do.
Also,
you do it well.
Thank you. Also, side note, this is like me coaching people on how best to hurt others. Here's a side note, folks. If you're ever in an argument with someone, don't resort to like, fuck you or anything like that. Just be like, hey, I'm really sorry that a parent of your choosing didn't love you enough to stick around, but stop being a dick to me. You don't have to know their history. You can just guess.
Yeah.
It's usually just the opposite parent, and there's going to be issues there.
True.
Right? Yeah, you'll get a moment of silence, and you'll hit hard. So, use that wisely. Anyway, back to this. Feyre asks what Tamlin wants, quote, "And what do you want?" I hissed. "An apology? For me to crawl back into your bed and play nice little wife?" Then Tamlin says, "Why should I want spoiled goods returned to me?" The misogyny, the concept that women are virginal objects to be preserved and saved just for men. And while Feyre wasn't a virgin, she had only been with one guy, and honestly, he was hardly a grown man. And the second a woman wants a different man, we become spoiled goods as if our value lies in our vagina. What the fuck?
It is such a double standard. It is so infuriating.
It's the whole concept of that, like, a key that can unlock anything is a good key. A lock that unlocks to every key is a bad lock. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's...
Suck my dick, you sons of bitches!
Your penis is not a key.
No, okay? Because I guarantee it doesn't unlock shit for me. Do you know what does? Requires AA batteries. Fuck you.
Mine charges.
That's better for the environment. This episode has been sponsored by Rabbit, the womanizer. This just reminds me of like this really real conversation with someone. A very real conversation. Amy knows this person. It was a friend of my ex. Thank God it wasn't my ex, because my ex was like too good of a man to have this mentality. But his friend genuinely believed that a woman who had sex with 100 different men had, and I quote, a loose vagina compared to a woman who had sex 100 times with one man. First, I had to explain to him the science. Like, that just doesn't, the math does not math, but he was bad at math anyway. And I spent a long time on that evening. I was like, all right, I'm doing this for womankind. Like, you're going to sit here and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And my ex was the one who actually brought it to me, was like, hey, he believes this. Can you talk to him? I was like, all right. And I think I convinced him. I don't know if I saved humanity or not, but I got one, guys. One down, several billion more to go.
I don't know what it is other than the patriarchy, but there's even like in infancy, boys are obsessed with their penis.
But it's like out there. Ours are tucked in. I mean, boys are obsessed with their penis, but like you have this like worm that moves around on you and that gets hard.
And it's attached to you.
Like, of course you're going to. Like, I was playing with my boobs the other day. I was just, like, holding them. I was like, oh, they're squishy. Like,
but we don't get our boobs until adolescence.
No, but, like, I get it in the sense of, like, it's right there.
Yeah.
I'm holding them right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mentality, right? Yeah, you're right. You're the one who's saying it. They're obsessed with their penis so early on. But, like, you know, the good men who have good mothers and good male role models, and let's be real, the sisters that do all the work.
Yeah.
Like, they're the ones to humble them and be like, put that shit away. That's nothing. Yeah.
So anyway.
Thank you for your work with all your brothers.
Oh my gosh. I didn't necessarily succeed with a couple of them, but two for two, I think.
That's not bad. That's a 50% success rate.
We apologize to our male listeners, but fuck the patriarchy.
What was it? I saw something where it's like men who complain about things that like women just want free drinks. Like, you know, they're the ones who like, if I want to hit on you, I have to buy you a drink and I have to buy you. You did this. You're the patriarchy. You set this up.
Right. You're the one who created pay inequality for men and women. You're the one who made us stay-at-home moms.
You're the one who puts value in my vagina and feel like versus value as me as a human. Like,
right.
You did this to yourself.
Right. Also, you get intimidated when a woman's capable of paying for her stuff or pays for your stuff. Like,
right?
What the hell do you want?
You dismantle yourself.
Yeah. One last chef's kiss moment for me in this scene. Tamlin is berating Feyre, and as we know, he calls her spoiled goods. He's then about to say, quote, the moment you let him fuck you like an animal, I'm guessing. Which reminds me of a great song.
I wanna fuck you like an animal. But that's hot. This is not.
No. The moment you let him fuck you like an blank, I'm guessing, Rhys then silences Tamlin. The irony for me is that Tamlin was about to degrade Feyre to an animal, yet Rhys beats Tamlin to the punch by silencing Tamlin and saying, quote, the gasping fish look is a good one for you, Tamlin. And it's brilliant.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
His code name's Jackal. He's an exceptional assassin.
Streaming now on Peacock.
He will kill again, unless we stop him.
Academy Award winner Eddie Redmayne.
You're paying me to kill him. I am charging you for getting away.
The Jackal's here. Look at the exits.
BAFTA Award winner Lashana Lynch.
I will find him, and I will kill him myself.
I like to win.
So do I.
The Day of the Jackal. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Chapter 45 opens with bold statements from Rhysand that if he and his Night Court companions were really allied with Hybern, that he would just have sliced into the minds of all the High Lords to make him do what he wanted. Though Baron scoffs, Aerys is positioned in a way that protects his mother, and I think this little tidbit is vital information for Aerys' true character, as well as being key to his relationship with Lucien.
All of these little moments, the good Aerys, and then we're going to get the bad Aerys, what he says to Mor, this back and forth, it's so complicated. It adds so many levels to him, layers.
Yeah, you see, his good shines through, but he keeps wearing the facade he has to wear.
But at the same time, I'm sure, he actually is hurt and bitter.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's had to play this role.
Yeah.
And then, like, the way that he talks to Moore makes it seem like Moore knows the truth, which means he's probably mad at her for letting that narrative, if he was innocent, go on.
Yeah. If he's the scapegoat, he's probably pissed about being the scapegoat.
But then at the same time, there's something that Moore doesn't know. Oh my God, Sarah, just
tell us.
Just tell us.
Tarquin chooses to speak up, and Feyre fears he will doom her and Rhysand as a result of the choices they made at the summer court. Quote, "We were thieves who had deceived him. We'd come to his house in peace and stolen from him, had ripped into their minds to ensure our success." If you think about it, this whole episode is really playing out the fallout of Feyre's and Rhys's decisions throughout the last 3 books. What Feyre chose to do at the Spring Court presents itself in Tamlin's ire. Rhys's actions under the mountain come back in the High Lord's distrust of him in general. Feyre and Rhys at the Summer Court in Mist and Fury also undoubtedly contributes to Tarquin's less than sunny disposition. But, surprisingly, Tarquin doesn't doom them. He realizes that thanks to Varian's warning, the Night Court genuinely came to the aid of his people. When he asks why, Rhys responds, quote, "Isn't that what friends do?" Because remember, both Tarquin and Rhysand really seemed like they wanted to be friends in Mist and Fury before the Book of Breathing's shenanigans. And doesn't it make you cry?
It does. It does make me want to cry. And remember what we said last season, that Cassian and Azriel are more like family to him, and Moore is family, and Amren is Amren. And he doesn't really have a friend.
Yeah.
So Tarquin would have been his first real friend.
Yeah. Then Rhysand does something really big to the surprise of everyone. Rhys tells Tamlin that he believes him. Feyre thinks, quote, "I knew Rhys meant what he said, even if Tamlin had been part of killing his own family, even if he had played his part in Hybern. For our home, for Prythian, he'd set it aside, a sacrifice that would harm no one but his own soul." I honestly don't think Rhys came to this decision easily. Yes, Rhys can be noble, but he's just as petty as Feyre is sometimes. What I think did it for Rhys is Tarquin. Tarquin set the example of putting aside painful differences so that they can work together against Hybern. If Tarquin had not done so just seconds prior, I honestly don't think Rhys would have either.
I love that so much because I couldn't tell if that scene made sense because Rhys was swayed so quickly, but at the same time, it also didn't feel rushed. It felt like it made sense. How can someone give Rhys a break, but he can't give Tamlin, not a full break, but just a slight little tiny break?
He threw him a bone.
Yeah. I would also say that Rhys knows Tamlin, right? Like, remember, they used to be friends, and I bet he was surprised on some level that Tamlin went to go be friends with Hybern. Eris lashes out when Moore gets sassy with him. Quote, "Good to know that after 500 years, you still dress like a slut." If I breathe deeply enough, then maybe I'll be able to get through this episode because I'm going to lose my shit. No, I've already lost it. When it comes to women, how are we attacked first? That's right, sexuality and choice. There is no such thing as a slut, first of all. Second, we already know that the Court of Nightmares doesn't wear much. So maybe it's also like lingering Court of Nightmare style, but also like Moore gets to wear whatever the hell she wants.
And Feyre even called Moore restrained.
Right? What more do you want, Eris? God.
Basically, he just insulted the entirety of the Night Court. It wasn't just Moore.
But that's the thing. Like, Moore could be extremely conservatively dressed, but maybe it's just like a tight dress and he would still attack her because men don't know how to attack women other than with our own sexuality and with what we choose. Bodies, sex, and choice.
Yep.
If we have sex, if we have a body, if we have a choice to anything, that is what will be attacked first.
Yep. So as we alluded to before, Daddy Azzy pounces. Let me be real with you. This whole thing plays out to me like Azriel is a dog. Rhys orders Daddy Azzy to stop, and Daddy Azzy ignores him. Baron similarly reduces Azriel to an animal by calling him an overgrown bat. Azriel only stops when Feyre says, "Come, Azriel," like a dog. Note that Rhys leaves it in Feyre's hands to calm the situation. Why? I honestly think it's because Feyre has been developing a bond with Azriel this entire time with their flying lessons. We've seen them develop a kinship of sorts, and also, as we alluded to earlier in the episode, Rhys is looking to Feyre to make her stand as a High Lady.
Feyre also puts her hand on Asriel's shield. And by Feyre putting her hand on Asriel's shield to help calm him down, it gives me that mother comforting vibes. We already know that Lucien sees Feyre as mommy, but I think we're going to make a good case here as to why Asriel sees Feyre as mommy too.
Mm-hmm. Because his mom never protected him from his brothers. And I think it goes back to the original point of Asriel protecting her from Tamlin earlier in the episode.
Be careful how you speak to my mommy.
It is something you would say about your mom.
Oh, I'd fuck people up.
Yeah.
I have verbally fucked people up with how they talk to my mom. To me, it makes sense that Asriel's the one who sees Feyre as mom, because Cassian's come to peace with his mom in many ways, with the horrible things that's happened, that he's taken his revenge and stuff. So, like, you know, we know that goes on there. But there's also something about Asriel and Lucien being mirrored too.
Yeah.
And everything is being mirrored. You know,
Right.
All the reflections are kind of happening right now. So that makes them brothers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if Elaine and Asriel and Lucien have a three-way, is that incestuous?
You know, it's like that one book I read where a woman had sex with a ghost grandfather and his nephew and his grandson. And I don't know, Amy. I've read a lot of questionable things of, is it incest if it's
a ghost?
If it's a ghost.
Okay.
We're just going to move forward. We can't linger on this.
Yeah, no. Now let's think about it. Feyre's the one to stop Az. Could anyone else have done that? Well, Cassian couldn't have. Asriel wouldn't have let him. Mor couldn't have. She's too shaken. And honestly, there's a rift between Mor and Az right now. And Asriel has righteous indignation on Mor's behalf. Like, Mor's not the answer. Rhys wasn't able to, so it can only be Feyre now. And to me, that further cements Feyre's position as High Lady, that she tamed the Shadow Singer.
It's not even the worst thing that's been said.
No, it's not.
Calm your tits, man. Just
calm your hard pectorals.
Yeah, they got titties too. They got titties. We all got titties.
Calm your sculpted titties.
This is me motorboating his sculpted titties. What the hell? It just is a bunch of rocks hitting my cheeks. Get bruised. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. No one needed that visual. I want to call out a slight moment when Feyre looks at Asriel. Quote, "The frozen rage there rooted me to the spot, but beneath it, I could almost see the images that haunted him. The hand Mor yanked away, her weeping, distraught face as she had screamed at Rhys." It just makes me think of what you said earlier, that Asriel is a defender of women.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. Like, he's not seeing anything else other than Mor. And that then kind of puts the blame on Mor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not on her. And this isn't Feyre. This isn't SJM. Like, this is Asriel and his character. And let me rephrase, because I don't want to say that, like, it's Mor's fault, but, like, she's the reasoning behind that. And it's not fair to put that on Mor. I get that Asriel loves her and everything, but this is on him. His actions went too far. He did not need to resort to violence. It wasn't even the worst thing said.
Right. Like, why can't you threaten him the way you threatened Tamlin? Just, like, don't speak about her that way.
I can't even remember what Tamlin said to her in that. It was worse. Guaranteed it was worse. Like,
I think it was about the sex noises.
Oh, yeah, it was the sex noise. I'm like, it was the sex noises. I could scroll up, but that's too difficult. But it was the sex noises. That's even more, that's worse than be like, you dress like a slut. I'm sure Mor was probably like,
thank you.
Damn right. Like, like she could own that.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, kind of like what we were saying earlier of Rhys gave Feyre a moment to assess of like, how do you feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
It comes to choice. And that's where SJM loves to think. I was about to say think, but she does. Like, she loves to say that Rhys is all about choice and giving Feyre a choice. You and I argue that sometimes, that maybe that's not the case. But this is an example of like Rhys saying, you want us to be mad at this? But
yeah.
that's
and
not.
Both times, Rhys gave Feyre choice. Asriel interrupted that choice.
Motherfucker. You're right. Asriel, respect women. Granted, eventually, next episode, we'll talk about it. Morp handles this pretty poorly.
Yeah, she does.
But this episode isn't about her. It's about Azriel being a stupid.
His intentions might be good. His execution is terrible.
Yeah. Let's just hope that's not how he's like in bed.
Oh, I believe in him.
His intentions are great. Execution's not there.
He can redeem himself. So we're not done yet, though. After calming Azriel down, Feyre sits Azriel next to her and pours him a glass of wine. To everyone else in the room, this looks like Feyre waiting on Azriel, as if he were her superior. Feyre evades this by claiming he and the rest of the inner circle are her family. But what's really going on here? Feyre is exerting her power over Azriel by serving him wine. Though Tamlin shakes his head in disgust, he honestly did the same thing to Feyre constantly when she was a human in Thorns and Roses. To me, this puts Azriel down even more, making him even more of an animal, though I think the intention really is to solidify Feyre as High Lady.
And again, this is totally giving me Mama Feyre vibes. She is taking care of him, getting him something to drink, making sure he sits next to her. Also, just need to take a beat about the whole rules and magic that no one can attack anyone there. Just, we see it, guys.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it a little bit more.
It's all questionable.
It's all questionable. Sarah, what's the magic system?
This is what happens when you don't explain your magic.
No.
As the group considers Tamlin's papers and how to mitigate the threat posed by Faebane, Thiessen reveals that his court has already developed a solution. Nuon, the master tinkerer and alchemist who built Lucian's mechanical eye, comes into the room. But why does Tamlin ignore her? And how does Rhys know her and announce her?
I think, doesn't Tamlin put Lucian in connection with her?
I don't know.
Because at that point, Lucian had left the Autumn Court and he was living with Tamlin.
Right.
But then why would he ignore her? Yeah.
Yeah, unless Lucian communicated that he left the Spring Court and Tamlin was an ass. But Tamlin wouldn't know that. As to how why does Rhys know her? It's for future plot. It will be revealed in the future.
It'll be a convenient thing that later on, which we will get into breadcrumbs later as to why. Yeah. Let's bookmark this. We'll go back to it.
Okay. This is where we learn that the day Lucian went out to explore the city of Valoris alone, he found samples of Faebane to send to his friend in the Dawn Court, and I appreciate the subtlety of that thread SJM wove into the novel. Feyre thinks down her bond with Rhys, quote, seems like Lucian can still play the fox. And I genuinely don't know if they're amused or bemused, and I'm interested to see how that gets played out in the TV series.
I like both. I think they're both
sometimes I think she's really proud of him, and then other times I'm like, maybe she's worried. I don't know.
Oh, I can see that. I always took it as a positive thing, but I can definitely see that being like a
Yeah,
moment.
Should we be concerned?
Yeah.
The amount of prejudice among the High Lords against Nuon is insane.
Yep.
And I'm not just talking misogyny. I'm talking about lesser Fae and the Fae from other regions, aka racism. And maybe I feel this because Nuon looks like Amryn and Amryn looks like me. Yeah. And so I feel like this is attack on Asians.
Yep.
But
no, it is.
So what am I talking about? Baron rags on Nuon being from Xian, or as it's pronounced in Mandarin, Xian, which apparently was on the side of the Loyalists. That same sort of prejudice was earlier demonstrated when Tamlin was disgusted with Feyre serving Azriel, a lesser Fae, or an Illyrian.
It's just, that old-fashioned racism. The fact that Nuon has to defend herself saying that she's a child of Prythian, it's just like those people who say, oh, where are you from? And you're like, America. Mm-hmm. Oh, but where are you really from?
Yeah. Just because I don't look like you doesn't mean I'm not American. But back onto the topic of misogyny, Feyre observes Nuon as, quote, a female of pride and hard work. Honestly, I think Feyre identifies with Nuon because of this, and it's one of many reasons why Feyre comes to Nuon's defense, but it's also one of many reasons why Baron especially is such a dick to Nuon, because she's a female of pride and hard work.
Yeah.
Let's put that down.
She's other. She's every type of other that he could possibly...
You're not the type of woman I can put down.
Yeah.
When Eris agrees to take the Faebane antidote as an olive branch, much to everyone's shock, Feyre wonders if Eris might actually be a good guy. We know her bias against Eris has begun to crack because Feyre begins to project onto Eris. Quote, what had it been like for him under the mountain? What games had he played? What had he endured? Trapped for 49 years. I doubted he would risk such a thing happening again, even if it set him in opposition to his father. Or perhaps because of that. Just more unanswered questions about Eris, and I really want to know. Just like Baron, Tamlin comes in hot once Nuon leaves, reminding Feyre and us as readers just what the fallout was in the Spring Court after Feyre's rampage there.
Tamlin sounds so annoying here, where he says, quote, "At least you have armies to give it to." That's how I imagine he sounds like.
Like a child.
No, you guys have armies. I don't. Well, stop being a little bitch, Faye Mail. Like, sure, Feyre might have made the wrong move by getting the armies to, like, completely hate him and, you know, leave the Spring Court. But it's not like they loved him to begin with. Had they been genuinely loyal, she wouldn't have gotten them to leave him, right? Feyre only made the wrong move because Tamlin fucked around and found out with her. Poop on you, Tamlin. It's shame on you. Shame on your cow. It's also really hard having Feyre not defend herself here when Tamlin says, quote, "Surely you knew when you turn your forces on me, it would leave my people defenseless against Hybern." How is Feyre not responding, "Surely, Tamlin, when you whipped your own soldiers in front of all the other soldiers when it wasn't his fault, you didn't expect them to leave you"?
Yeah, he's dumb.
He's dumb. Also, had she said that in front of everyone else, everyone would have judged him for it too.
Oh, yeah.
Double win.
Yeah.
Defend yourself, Feyre.
Yeah. But I think Feyre is just so overwhelmed. And I think she's realizing that though she only intended to hurt Tamlin, she didn't intend to hurt the innocent people of the Spring Court. Mm-hmm. And she's trying to be in denial of that element of truth, that innocent people were harmed in the process.
Yeah.
In response to every accusation that has truth in it, Feyre tries to remain impervious. Quote, "I said nothing, even as I blocked the images from my mind. I shut that out, too. He'd said they'd remained untouched, that Hybern had promised." The extent of Feyre's naivety, especially from early in this novel, is unveiled here. She didn't think through the full extent of the consequences of her actions at the Spring Court. She didn't think beyond Tamlin and harming him, and that's really starting to bite her in the ass. I do love Nesta's dry retort, though. Quote, "So you won't be taking the antidote, then?" And I love it for multiple reasons. First off, it sounds like something Jac would say.
Thank you. Love you.
Second, Nesta is coming to Feyre's defense by diverting Tamlin's attacks from her. Because Nesta's Feyre's older sister, and no one gets to talk to Feyre like that except Nesta.
As an older sister, you understand.
Yeah, I do.
No one gets to shit on your siblings like you.
It's true. Vivian gets snippy with Baron when he refuses to aid the people of the Spring Court. Baron responds, quote, "Wives were invited as a courtesy, not as consultants." Jac, take it away.
It's just so frustrating.
Your pause. I love it.
It's just so mad. Because I know men like this exist.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's just so hard. I feel like we need Nesta's energy all around, like for all these people, because I want more clever comebacks because, yes, like Vivian defends herself and I'm proud of her, but I want it to hurt him. Like, I want more painful comebacks.
Yeah.
It comes as no surprise that Baron is the sexist piece of shit that he is. And what does he do? He attacks women the only way he knows how, through the threat of sexual violence. Baron says, quote, "Hybern will do far worse things than kill you. A young, pretty thing like you especially." And while he's not saying that he'll be the one to inflict that pain, he's not saying that he's going to help her either. Mm-hmm. Baron goes on to pretend to be the concerned husband because he talks about his wife's two sisters never making it out of the war camps. And then he goes to touch her as if concerned. Quote, "Helion was watching Baron closely, his stare simmering with reproach. The Lady of Autumn Court kept her focus on the reflection pool." So many layers, so much going on. We can guess that there's probably way more to the story than what Baron is saying here. And the fact that Helion probably knows the whole story and is still very much affected. Plus note that the Lady of the Autumn Court is looking into the reflection pool as if she's reflecting on herself, her life, and everything that's happened.
Honestly, I think both Helion and the Lady of the Autumn Court are thinking about the time they met, because after the Lady of Autumn runs from her sisters, as we'll discuss next episode, she jumps into the river, Helion saves her, they make love, you know.
Oh, it's going to be no surprise that we're going to find out that Baron is the one who put her sisters there.
Oh, you're right.
Right? Like, the fact that he brought it up there and he's holding her hand, I bet it's a threat saying, like, I put them there. I can put you there, too. Yeah.
Interesting.
Do Fae women get menopause? Like,
I don't know.
When can they stop having kids?
No idea.
Because the Lady of the Autumn Court stopped having kids. She looks like she's fully capable of having kids.
Right.
She keeps having kids.
Right. I don't know. Tarquin, being the classy guy he is, offers the Summer Court as refuge for Tamlin's people because nobody else is offering. The conversation then turns to the human lands, which no one seems to really care about. Nesta speaks up at this point, and Feyre observes that her sister, quote, lifted her chin, poised as any emissary. I think Feyre's proud of Nesta. So when Nesta asks where the humans will go, Feyre stands up with her sister and replies, quote, it is my concern, and the voice that came out of me was not Feyre the Huntress or Feyre the Cursebreaker, but Feyre the High Lady. And I just have to point out that in this description, SJM is tipping her hat at the evolution of Feyre in each of her novels. The Huntress is Thorns and Roses, Cursebreaker, Mist and Fury, and High Lady is Wings and Ruin.
Just like Pokemon.
Yes, her evolutionary stages.
Right?
Yes.
She's now Charizard.
She is now Charizard, as we will see
as
in a
we
moment.
will see. Yeah, she is Charizard. She's about to throw those flames.
Baron refuses to aid the humans, stating, quote, I will not send my own forces to protect chattel. I feel like chattel has been used before. I know Feyre has compared humans to chattel because that's how Fae view them. I'm pretty sure Amarantha probably calls humans chattel as well at some point in Thorns and Roses. But just have to make that connection that Baron's an asshole.
Yep. Just in case you missed it, there's a solid connection to him being an asshole.
Exactly. Feyre and Baron get into a verbal tug of war, and in doing so, Baron strikes a low blow by bringing up Claire again, as if Feyre intentionally got Claire killed.
And again, I'm thinking of Nesta now.
Yep. Throughout this series, Claire is always a trigger for Feyre. It is the source of her greatest guilt, which is why when Baron insults Cassian for being a bastard of Lesser Fae, and then accuses Rhys of being a whore for Amarantha, Feyre goes absolutely ballistic. But before we get to that point, I want to reflect on something Nesta says after Baron insults Cassian. Quote, that bastard may wind up being the only person standing in the way of Hybern's forces and your people. And she's not wrong. I mean, she and Cassian do go up against Hybern at the end. Note also that Nesta is the only one that goes to Cassian's defense. Not even Cassian himself is willing to say anything. Or Asriel, or Rhys, or Mor, or Feyre, and what the fuck?
Yeah, and just like how Cassian was the only one to speak up in defense of Nesta.
Yeah.
Nesta's the only one to speak in defense of Cassian. But she does it on the most Nesta way. Be like, yeah, that bastard.
Yeah.
That's my bastard over there.
Yeah.
Careful how you speak to my bastard. Before we go into chapter 46, I just want to point something out. I think we find a typo. Here's the quote. The others shouted, shooting to their feet, but I couldn't hear anything but Eris's words. You mean Baron's words?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be Baron's words.
An editor screwed up.
Just saying. For the collector's edition of this book, let's fix it.
Yep.
We move into chapter 46 as Feyre blasts Baron with his own fire magic that she inherited when she was remade and evolved into Charizard. Quote, I'd kill him and gladly be done with it, Feyre thinks. She has no regard for anyone, no care that her magic singes Eris's clothes or harms the Lady of Autumn, who is maybe the most innocent person here. Feyre has to show off, and it absolutely annoys me. Not only does she use fire, she creates a water barrier around Baron and then uses a fist of light to slam into Baron's barrier. Like, really? She's not subtle at all. Why not just destroy his mind with her Daemati skills? Easier, quicker, less visible.
Right. She goes full Captain Planet.
Yeah.
She uses earth, wind, fire, water. Like, everything kind of comes together. And she goes, I am Captain Planet. And destroys him with everything. Like, I'm half expecting Olaf to show up and build a snowman. And she's like, I made you. You attack him too. Yeah, I understand what SJM's trying to do, right? Like, she needs Feyre to unravel and show the High Lords that she has all the powers. But it's just a little cringy. Mm-hmm. Like, she just keeps going at it. Mm-hmm. So Feyre has to go through all of her powers to make a point. Like, and where are these wards?
Yeah, seriously.
Where are the damn wards? Her attack is the only one that makes sense because it's Helion's magic.
Right.
But
she didn't even break the wards.
No. Yeah, I needed that explained.
Yeah.
Just for a bit.
We have an interesting reversal here. Feyre is being called to by Rhys, but she ignores him. And it's just like when Daddy Azzy fought Eris. Rhys called Daddy Azzy, and Daddy Azzy ignored him. Rhys has to talk to Feyre mind to mind to calm her down. Among the first things she hears is the trickling water of the reflection pool. Remember, her strongest affinity is to her water magic, but also it's the reflection pool. Is it important that that's the first thing she hears? I couldn't decide.
I think so. I mean, we talk about water kind of being her balance, like kind of coming, like settling her. She used fire first, and fire's always been the thing that when she loses control or when she's kind of battling with her own morals.
Yeah.
And water was always the magic that she used when it was, like her own morals kind of coming together, which makes sense why when she uses the water from the reflection pool, it turns into steam. Like, she tried to use morals against him, but this isn't a morally right thing to do.
Right.
I mean, what are morals? Is it morally right? No. Do I support it entirely? Yes. Yeah, so I think it does make sense. I also kind of find it entertaining that, I don't know, like, I like it when the fact that Rhys has to hold her face in his hand. I like the visual of it. It also makes her seem smaller.
Right. It's just like Feyre putting her hand on Azriel's shield.
Yeah, but Azriel's shield, he was blocking her. Yeah. And it's it kind of has a childish aspect, but she's still being blocked from him, right? It's not like she's able to go and put her hand on his shoulder. Rhys has to get in her face and be like, I'm here.
Yeah.
I love it. This isn't a critique of it. It's just it's impactful. Now here's a second discussion. There's clearly a mirroring thing happening here. Feyre is being handled the same way she handled Azriel. Is it a mirroring? Or is it just, is it too soon? It is a mirroring, but it's also very soon. Normally when we get these moments, it's the beginning of the book and the end of the book. This is just pages, chapters.
I don't know if it's too soon. It's definitely easier for the reader to see how the Azriel moment and the Feyre moment are paralleled because they are in such close proximity. Mm-hmm. And maybe to some extent it shows, and I think you say this later, how much Feyre really must be pissed off because she was in such control before and now she's completely out of control. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I believe it.
Which is interesting because I think Feyre losing it makes sense. And I didn't talk about it in the last chapter because this is already a long episode, but there are moments where Feyre keeps saying in the last chapter, I try to block out the images.
Right.
I try to not hear the screams. I try to do this. So there's you can see the PTSD building up in her, right? She's about to lose it. And Feyre describes the moment when she does lose it, that the images take over. Mm-hmm. So the buildup matches for me. Okay. It's just the fact that it matches Azriel so closely that it diminishes Feyre's comfort and high ladiness with Azriel.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that was done on purpose because now Feyre went from I'm high lady, I'm in control, I can settle this, to I'm also a loose cannon now too.
Yeah.
And I know that maybe the takeaway is trying to be Feyre's just as strong as Rhys. Mm-hmm. She can take any of them on. She is just as much as a force of nature. But I think it's hard to ignore the fact that it undermines her high ladiness a little bit.
I think it does. I think it does. Mm-hmm. Moving on. Everyone is starting to realize the implications of Feyre having their magic. Helion says to Rhys, quote, no wonder you made her high lady, which Rhys denies. He says he did it because he loves her and her powers are the last thing he considered. And that's a lie.
No, that should be the first thing you consider. You should be this is actually a really smart move.
He only suggested it after she defeated Hybern in Velaris.
Yeah.
Obviously her powers were a consideration.
Yeah. I think he would have done it regardless, for sure, but she's powerful.
He might have waited.
Yeah.
But it just happened, so let's go do it now.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't deny that.
Yeah, like, hey, you just saved the entire city and put yourself at risk and everything. Like, you really she earned the title of High Lady.
She did.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
She earned it with her powers.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's actually not the point I want to make. I want to talk about Tamlin's reaction. Quote, Tamlin was only watching me and Rhys, my mate's declaration hanging between us. The implication for Tamlin here is that though Tamlin once said he loved Feyre, he did not love her enough to make her High Lady and instead mocked her for that. Tamlin, on the flip side, though, was willing to go to Hybern to get her back. So what does that say about his character?
Yeah. You and I have talked about it on our lives, on the episodes. Did Tamlin ever love Feyre? And the answer to that is both yes and no. Tamlin loved Feyre in his own way, and no, because it wasn't actually love. When it's possessive, when it's controlling, that's not love. Talk about a moment when Tamlin can really see his past actions and his thought process on full display.
I think you're totally right. And can I make an analogy?
Yeah.
It makes me think of Feyre, and we've said this before, Feyre was a possession to Tamlin. If someone took my cat, I would do anything to get my cat back. But I'm not putting my cat is not co-signing with me on the lease because she's a shit worker.
Yeah.
So
she hardly cleans up around the house.
Exactly. She's not responsible at all. But yeah, Feyre it was just about possession.
Yeah, and
you can love a possession.
You can love a possession, but again, like, you can love a possession, but only so much.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's not, like, real love and everything. And I'm sure in Tamlin's mind, he thought there's no way that a High Lady could exist. Like, he couldn't expand his mind because he wasn't in absolute true love with her, where it's like, you know what? I'm willing to break whatever rules I'm going to break for you.
Yeah.
His whole argument when he showed up is like, I loved this woman and she betrayed me.
Mm-hmm.
That's his whole thing. Like,
right.
I am the scorned lover. I have been cuckolded. Like, you know, he's everything that he's the victim here. And now he gets to see, like, wait a minute, here's a thing that I actively told her no. And she didn't even ask for it. And here's someone who did it.
Yeah.
Because he loved her.
Yeah. And look at how powerful she is. And I told her to suppress all of that, to hide all of it.
Yep. I do appreciate, though, like, and I hate because I don't appreciate him at all, but when Tarquin kind of looks at Tamlin, like, you knew about this? And Tamlin was like, it wasn't anyone's business. I don't know. Maybe this is like the hopeful in me because, again, Tamlin in his own way cared about Feyre. It's all these half-truths. There's like kernel in there somewhere. And in that moment, it almost felt like, I read it almost like a moment of like that old Tamlin.
Yeah, the defense.
That did care about her.
Yeah.
To be like, that's not your fucking problem. Like, that was not your concern.
Right.
It felt oddly like him and Rhys were a unit.
Right. They were aligned.
Split second.
Yeah.
Where it was about Feyre's safety.
Yeah.
But again, for Tamlin, it was about safety and control and all this other stuff in a toxic way. For Rhys, it's actual safety and love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feyre accidentally burns the Lady of the Autumn Court, and I really can't wait to get a name from her because I get tired typing that whole title each time.
Yeah.
And Feyre apologizes to her. The fact that, quote, her eyes lifted towards mine, round as saucers, was the lady's reaction. It breaks my heart. And knowing that Helion is watching, it also breaks my heart. Extra breaking.
Yeah. Lots of breaking.
So much. Everything broke this episode in me. My sanity, my heart. Baron calls Feyre human filth, and because we don't believe in learning from our actions or words, Rhys attacks Baron, pushing him down to the ground and having his chair disappear. Rhys says, "Don't ever speak to my mate like that again." And I just want to remind you what he said the page before, quote, "The words of that hateful bastard don't mean anything." Okay, so that's 3 people from the Night Court that have attacked others. Like, I just want to make sure I'm keeping count because it's just the number keeps growing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're trigger happy.
They're so trigger happy. And it's just so cringy when you think about how they're like, we're superior. We're going to take bets on who attacks. It's like not a single person there attacked them. And I feel like that was such a choice from SJM because no one ever lifted a finger towards them. And I'm wondering if that's SJM trying to show, 1, inner circle's trigger happy, 2, everyone else is too afraid to actually push them physically.
Yeah. Or 3, the inner circle can use their magic and no one else can.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I do think you're right. The other High Lords are okay with the status quo. And they don't want to challenge each other and risk anything, whereas the Night Court is willing to risk everything.
Which is funny because they're also not.
Right.
They're the ones who called this meeting together.
Right.
They're the ones who are the most were not willing to risk everything.
Right.
Fucking I just want to have a talk with them. My 5th wish from the genie is to have they all show up to their rooms and there I am sitting on the chair, be like, hey guys, we need to talk. Post-game roundup.
Yeah. Let's debrief.
Where are those damn wards? All right, last time.
Baron tries to end the meeting, and Nesta refuses to let him, standing like, quote, a pillar of steel, which I feel like is a Silver Flames reference somehow. Mm-hmm. Let me also make another Silver Flames reference, which is not a spoiler per se. We learn in Silver Flames that Nesta was a dancer, and I think this is important to know in the context of this scene. How else can one explain how she commands the room? The gravitas that she has that stops Baron and causes Eris to motion for his brothers to sit. Even Feyre acknowledges that, quote, Nesta marked the gesture as if realizing she indeed held their complete attention, that every word mattered. And Nesta proceeds to perform. Like, it is she is on a stage and she performs.
Yeah.
Let's also think about this line. When Nesta talks about her experience in the cauldron and seeing the king's heart, Feyre thinks, quote, truth or lie? I couldn't tell. Nesta's face revealed nothing, and no one dared contradict her. Why is this the case when Rhys and Tamlin were contradicted at every turn by everybody earlier? Is it because they don't know her? Is it because she's a woman? Or does it have something to do with her powers and the presence she has? At the core of it, I think it's because Rhys and Tamlin, though they were contradicted at the start, have since been validated by somebody else in the room. And it's kind of taken the fight out of everybody. Everybody's just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll have to hear you out. Except for Feyre, and using her powers. Mm-hmm. Had Nesta gone first in this meeting before anything else or anyone else, she might not have gotten as much attention and may have gotten more of a lashing out from other people.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, this entire time, Nessa's been eyeing them all, clocking everyone.
Yeah.
And
she speaks to them in a way that they're like, oh, taken aback.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if her eyes are doing that molten thing, that I'm sure people, probably not because they would all get scared.
Yeah.
But, even Eris, I didn't realize how much Eris watches Nesta.
He watches her so much.
Which makes sense in Silver Flame, spoiler. All right, you had your second. How he proposes to her so quickly. He was, I did not register. I was always like, it's so fast, which it is fast. But he
appreciates her
a lot here.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yep.
And what's interesting though is that they're also not questioning Nesta. You could also look at it is that she's talking about a man's heart, not her opinion. They question her when it's like, what should we do to help the humans?
Yeah.
But when it's like, I saw the heart of Hybern, it's almost like, okay, we got to respect that now.
Yeah, because she's talking about a man.
Yeah, it's the man's heart.
Fair. I do want to say, just like you said, Nesta's statements are really, really powerful. And I love that there's a moment where you can tell she has love and appreciation for Feyre's sacrifices that comes through.
Yeah.
But it's so typical of Nesta to not say it directly to Feyre and say it to everybody else in the room.
You're so right. She gave Feyre her dues.
Yeah.
Which, what's funny is I bet in Nesta's mind, saying it publicly like that means more to her.
Yeah.
Than in Feyre's mind.
It would mean more
privately.
Yeah.
For Nesta, she's a prideful person. So putting her pride aside in front of everyone, it's the whole different love languages and ways of expressing.
Yeah.
They just haven't figured out their love language with one another.
Yeah. They haven't figured out how to connect.
Mm-mm. While the High Lords try to figure their shit out, Tarquin says the most reasonable thing, quote, you saved us under the mountain. Losing a kernel of power seems a worthy payment. Thank you.
Yeah. Agreed.
Someone would have said that. You know what? Ask all these bitches under the mountain, hey, are you willing to give up a kernel of your power?
To get out from this?
Every single one would have jumped on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all? That's all it takes?
That's it. Feyre makes her final stand against the High Lords. She tells them that it is her power now and that they gave it to her. I love that reminder. And that she can do whatever the hell she wants to do with it. I love the non-apologetic, like, no, you gave this to me. Now it's mine. But what I love about this moment is right before she gives her speech. Quote, I stood looking Thesan in the eye, then Helion, Tarquin, Callias, exactly as Nesta had done. Feyre has done this a few times, channeling her older sister to find strength and to be strong as her. Women supporting women.
Women supporting women. And I want to dig into that quote that you kind of referenced. Feyre tells the men in the room, quote, I did not take your power. You gave it to me, along with the gift of my immortal life. I am grateful for both. But they are mine now, and I will do with them what I will. And that feels like the biggest F you Sarah J. Maas can give to the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry I used your system against you.
Yeah.
But I'm allowed to because you do it all the time.
Absolutely. I'll go back to the most basic form of like men buying a woman a drink. And
Exactly.
It's like, well, no, I'm going to take advantage of that because you set this up.
Right.
Also, you're giving me this.
Right.
I don't owe you shit.
Exactly. You made a choice.
Yeah.
So I get to reap the benefits of that choice.
It's like all of a sudden it's like, all right, women have the right to vote. What? You're going to vote now? You're going to have opinions?
You're going to vote for a woman?
Yeah.
Why?
Like, what's going on? No, I'm...
F you patriarchy.
F you patriarchy. But let's end on a good, strong note. And it's the note that SJM ends on in this chapter. And because women are amazing and awesome and we are beautiful, wonderful creatures, Vivian and Cressida are the first to stand and say that they'll fight with Feyre and company. And I love women. We are the best.
We are the best.
Yeah. Let's get into some breadcrumbs, but big fat spoiler warning for SJM Universe.
Yeah, just everything.
Everything. In chapter 44, we get a few mentions of Helion's, quote, scar-flecked hand. And we get a couple of these mentions, and the only other character that we get a lot of references to their scarred hands is Azriel.
And might there be a connection? We don't know.
We don't know.
Feyre thinks at one point, quote, Rhys was as different from them, the High Lords, as human were to Fae. Maybe because Rhys is Valg.
Or something.
Or something.
Or a Prince of Hell, or literally anything else.
Anything more powerful than a High Fae.
Yep. Chapter 45, Nuon says, quote, the Mother has provided us with everything we need on this earth. This feels a lot like they're going to have to go to Nuon to help them get Bryce home.
Well, it's just a principle that the Mother provides everything that we need. Okay, great. We'll figure it out. Like,
yeah.
it's gonna, this is totally a foreshadowing thing.
Yes.
I agree. As we alluded to before, we find out that Nuon, who looks like Amren, is from Xi'an, or Xi'an. Who else looks like Amren? Fury and Crescent City. Is there a tie?
There's going to be.
There's obviously going to be a tie because Fury is this crazy assassin.
Yeah.
And Amren's the most powerful being in all of Prythian. Like, there's a connection.
There's such a connection. We're going to... Nuon's going to come back. That's a guaranteed.
I think so too.
And finally, also in chapter 45, after Eris agrees to take Nuon's Faebane antidote, quote, Baron studied his son with a scrutiny that made some small part of me wonder if Eris might have grown to be a good man, if he had a different father, if one still lurked there beneath centuries of poison. We're definitely going to see Eris transform. There are too many clues that he protected Lucien more over the years for him not to have a good heart. Like, it's coming.
It's coming.
You know, it's going to be... That's why I think that after the third Crescent City book and we get the next round of SJM books, I really do believe it's going to be multiple POVs over the course of like 3 books or something. And once Eris and Mor find peace, then Azriel won't have anything to be angry about.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that leave him?
Yeah, nothing.
Nope.
So let's go back to the question we asked at the beginning. How does SJM take on the topic of misogyny and what are the female reactions to it?
I really like, as much as reading and talking about it hurt my soul, I love these chapters because SJM, I don't feel like has taken on the patriarchy or misogyny or talked about things like that at all so head on until this point.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of sexism. I mean, people have argued if is it needless, is it not needless? But like, here's a moment where It's so relatable, and she's making it so clear. The disgusting amount of misogyny here. And I think there's also something to be said where, like, I'd say I live in a happy little bubble. I surround myself with good men and good women, and no one questions me and my worth as a woman, just like Feyre's kind of in her own bubble with her friends. Right. Now you exit the bubble and you're like, oh shit, here's what other people believe. But as to the female reactions, I think that Vivian and Cressida, they're watching this all go down. And Moore and Nesta. Feyre is out there fighting for her life, metaphorical life, like, but she's out there fighting for her own dignity, for her own reputation, for all of this stuff. And I'm not saying that each of the women should have stood up and said something. I personally don't know if I could be capable of not saying something. But the fact that those two women are the first to stand up and be like, no, I'm going to fight with her. That is their stand.
Yeah.
Where it matters.
Yeah, it matters. And I love that at the end of one of the chapters, I can't remember which chapter it is, maybe 45, Vivian turns to Khaleesi and's like, why can't I be High Lady?
Yeah.
It's like the thought never crossed her mind. And now that she's seeing Feyre and what Feyre's capable of, and she gets to be High Lady, it's like, well, yeah, I deserve to be a High Lady too.
Yeah. And, you know, we didn't talk about Vivian's quote, but when she fights back to Baron, she says something like, hey, I'm going to be out there fighting right along with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be putting my life, my blood on the line. Badass. Like,
yeah.
Hey, like, she's saying, like, I'm going to bleed for this country, nation, whatever, like, island. I get as much as a say as anyone else here.
Yeah.
And she'll be High Lady soon enough.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, like you, Jack, I really, really enjoyed looking at this from the perspective of Feyre and Nesta and these women taking on the misogyny that is pervasive throughout their leadership and throughout their, society. Yeah. And it feels very metaphorical for our own world. And I wonder to what extent this was also SJM finding some sort of catharsis with her own experiences in the publishing world or something else, right? I think that it's really powerful when you really think about how the women are supporting the women, and also when you think about how petty the men are.
Oh my God. So
they have no legs to stand on when it comes to fighting against these women.
Yeah.
And it's abhorrent how they constantly are using sex. And the women are shaken by it, but we don't have to be.
I mean, there's a certain silent strength. I mean, not a certain, like, there is a silent strength amongst these women, right? Like, the fact that it's not until the end that Vivian and Cressida say, we'll stand with you.
Yeah.
The fact that Feyre is really the one who's kind of, like, trying to defend herself, but even then she's struggling because all these attacks are coming at her. Like, yes, Azriel defends her, Rhys defends her, but it's hard, and it's a very truthful moment where it's like, I don't blame the other women for not saying something, because it can be really hard and intimidating to be in a room full of majority men and trying to speak up and say something.
Yeah.
And that is scary. It is totally scary. So the strength amongst the women here has to be silent, has to be a steel, an intense stare, eyeing them in the eyes. But that doesn't have to mean weakness. It could also be like, we're also the only ones who have our shit together. You're the ones who are acting out. I think you said something about, like, was it cathartic for SJM to write this in the publishing world? And I'm sure it is, because so many people just describe her writing as fairy porn.
Yeah.
And, we tease her about the magic system and stuff. But, like, again, not every writer's going to have it all completely perfect and figure out, like, plenty of authors, male authors, have, like, detailed magic systems, but their characters are shit. Like,
right. They focus too much on the magic system, and they tell a terrible story.
Yeah, you've got plot, you got magic system, and you've got character development. Like, you only get 2 out of the 3.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. We like to tease her, but there's nothing wrong. And that's why we cover female authors.
Yeah.
And do it in a literary analysis, because it's good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Misogyny, patriarchy. Let's go burn my bra. No, I spent too much money and and they're held up. Also, make sure you tune back in on Thursday for a special mini episode. We collected your thoughts, your questions, and everything in between about the High Lords meeting, and we're going to be reviewing all of that and go into more detail about what we think about this High Lord meeting.
We had our own thoughts. We were able to address some other thoughts that you guys shared with us, but we just want to give the opportunity to explore, because you know what? We all love this section of the book.
We do. So yeah, special mini episode coming Thursday.
See you then. And now this week's featured podcast review.
This comes from Amy. Not you.
Not me.
Although I will say this is a UK review.
Oh.
My commute has gotten a lot more exciting. I'm loving this podcast so much. As an English lit graduate and an avid reader of the whole ACOTAR series, this is the perfect podcast. Loving the literary insights and delving into books again. Those Amy's chef kiss moments are the best. And when I'm like, ooh, clever Sarah J. Maas, it's so great to listen to a critical analysis of books. Reminds me of being back in university.
There are not a lot of things I liked about university, but it was things like this where you're like, oh, this person was brilliant.
Yeah.
I totally got it.
I loved university. I liked college.
I was good at college. Doesn't mean I enjoyed college.
You didn't enjoy it? I didn't make it better for you.
You made everything better.
Yeah. But you're right, though. There were some of the classes that all we did were read books and analyze it. I will always remember my favorite class. I can't remember what level, Professor Julian White, I think, at ASU. And we went through so many different literary theories and read different books that worked for those theories. And the high I got from it was just like, oh my God, what is all of this?
Yeah, I do miss, you have to read 12 books per class each semester, and you're just constantly consuming literature and thinking about literature. And it was a high.
Yeah.
It was a high, and I do miss that.
I mean, yeah, like taking 6 classes or something, and then each class you have to read a book a week.
Yeah.
So I was consuming 6 books on average. Like sometimes some semesters were less than that, but there was one semester I was really dying, and it was 6 books a week, and just
6 books a week.
They're because I had 6 different classes.
Oh yeah.
That was the semester I was working on that.
Dissertation.
I did an undergraduate conference and had to write a dissertation. So I had to take extra classes to help make up for some things. And that was a hard one. And I will always remember it was Mallet's. Malott. He sucked, so I can call him Mallet. It was his class. I remember I kind of gave up on some of the readings, and I just was laying in the hallway, absolutely exhausted. Be like, Amy, just tell me what happened.
Yeah, that one was 12 books in a semester, and I purposefully read 2 weeks ahead.
Yeah.
So I would give you the Cliff Notes.
Absolutely, yeah. That was the semester that I was really, I was hurting big time. And my favorite memories are laying in the hall, on the ground, and just you standing over me telling me what happened.
Because we had pop quizzes in that class.
All the time. And I was just tell me what happened. Just, I don't have it in me. I'm broken. I miss it. I miss being that kind of broken.
Thanks, Amy. If you would like to have your review featured on the podcast, please leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be exploring chapters 47 through 50 of A Court of Wings and Ruin.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a weekly mini episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Bye.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.